Hey guys, David here from techop.io, and in this video I'll be showing you how to install Windows Vista with updates. So why are we installing Windows Vista in 2025? Well, the internet seems to have a newfound obsession with the frutiger aero aesthetic that dominated the mid-2000s and was adopted by Microsoft in Windows Vista. Additionally, Apple just announced their liquid glass design language that's being used in iOS and macOS 26 going forward, and people are saying it looks a lot like Windows Vista, with even Microsoft poking fun at the concept on social media. So I figured why not relive a part of history, install Windows Vista, and take a look for ourselves. Now I'm going to be showing you how to install Windows Vista as well as Windows Updates using Legacy Update, since Microsoft has long since disabled the official Windows Update servers. I should also mention that you shouldn't use this as a day-to-day operating system anymore, since it is no longer secure or supported by Microsoft. I had a few people upset with me in my Windows XP video for not mentioning this, and they are correct, so just keep this in mind. Do not use this for everyday use, do not enter personal accounts or passwords on the web using Windows Vista, and do not even connect Windows Vista to the internet unless you are behind some sort of router firewall at the very least. This video is for educational and historical purposes only. Keep in mind this video assumes that you want to install Windows Vista as the main and only operating system on your computer, and will erase everything that's already on your hard drive. All that being said, let's get started. So the first thing you need to do is boot from your installation DVD. On most computers, you'll type F11, F12, delete or escape on boot to access the boot menu. In the virtual machine I'm using here today, I'm just going to hit escape, and I'll select CD-ROM drive using the arrow keys to boot from my installation DVD, and I'll hit enter. Press any key to boot from CD or DVD, and we'll just wait for this to load. Alright, now the installer is booted, I'm just going to click next, and I'll click install now. And I should mention that it's actually in Windows Vista where we first get this graphical installer at first boot. Before this, it was mostly text-based, as you can see if you go and look at my Windows XP video, and it really hasn't changed much up to this day, so it's kind of cool. Anyways, if you're using a retail installer, you'll be asked for a product key before seeing the license agreement. In my case, I'm installing Windows Vista Enterprise, which is meant to be volume activated, so I wasn't asked for a product key, but if you are, you'll need to input that and hit next on the product key screen. So once you're at the license agreement, I'm just going to accept the terms and click next. And I'm going to click custom to do a clean installation here. And we can see that I already have a partition on my disk here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select the partition, and I'm going to click drive options and click delete, and I'll click OK. And now we can see that we have unallocated space. Now, if you have more than one partition in this list, you'll want to go through each one and click delete until the only thing remaining is unallocated space. Again, like I said, this is assuming that you want to install this as the only operating system on your computer. Otherwise, you want to make sure that you do it with the right disk. So just delete all the partitions on the disk until the only thing remaining on that disk is unallocated space. So once you've done that, I'll select the unallocated space and I'll just click next. And Windows Vista will start to install. Now, while we're waiting on this, I wanted to make a point of mentioning that looking back, Windows Vista in itself actually isn't inherently a bad operating system, especially when all the kinks were worked out with updates. It was just way too ahead of its time when it was released in 2006. Microsoft way overestimated the average person's hardware capabilities at the time, and most people's computers struggled to run Vista because they just weren't powerful enough. Additionally, Microsoft did introduce a completely new driver architecture in Windows Vista, and hardware manufacturers were pretty much forced to rewrite their drivers from Windows XP for proper compatibility on Vista. When Windows 7 was released 3 years later in 2009, it actually wasn't too different from Vista under the hood, surprisingly. But by then, people's computer hardware had caught up, and device manufacturers had had time to rewrite their device drivers for the new driver architecture. So people found Windows 7 worked well, and it got all the praise for being a great OS, leaving an unfair stain on Vista's legacy in my opinion, since most of the features in Windows 7 were actually introduced in Vista. A lot of features introduced in Vista can actually still be found in Windows today, such as user account control, the new driver architecture, and the enhanced networking stack. Anyways, I just figured I'd share a bit of history while this completes, since the Vista installation takes forever compared to modern Windows, but I'll come back once this is done. Alright, and we're seeing Windows needs to restart to continue, so the installer is just going to restart. And we have the iconic Vista boot screen, plain black background with a green loading bar. Alright, and it looks like it's at the final stage of the installation here. The computer is probably going to reboot after this as well, so I'm just going to come back once this is done. Alright, and after a couple of reboots here, I'm finally at this setup Windows screen. So it says to type a username. I'm just going to type in my name, and I'll type in a password as well. I always just put a space for the hint, otherwise it doesn't let you pass through that. I don't know why they make you put a hint. It's more secure without, but anyways, I'll click next. And it says to type a computer name. I'll just type Win Vista and choose a desktop background. I'm going to go with the, again, iconic auroras here, and I'll click next. And for Windows updates, I'm going to click Use Recommended Settings, but it's not going to work out of the box like I was saying in the beginning, since Microsoft has long disabled the official Windows Update servers for Vista, but we're going to fix that with Legacy Update later. So I'll just click Use Recommended Settings for now, and I'll set my time zone. I'm in Eastern Time, and I'll click Next. And it was actually in Vista where we see the introduction of network profiles like home, work, and public location, and these control different security settings in the operating system. So I'm just going to click Home for this video, and we get a thank you message. I'll go ahead and click Start. Now this screen here can take a minute, so I'll come back once this is done. All right, we got the Vista chime there, and I'm going to go ahead and type my password to log in. And here we are, we're at the Windows Vista desktop. Now, we also get this Welcome Center screen here. I'm just going to go ahead and close that. Again, that was introduced with Vista, but didn't stick around for future versions of Windows, at least in that form. And at this point, before you do anything else, I'd recommend installing your hardware's drivers. You can either use the driver CD, or driver downloads were starting to become a thing at the time as well. Now, as I said earlier, I'm in VMware here, so I'm going to install the VMware Tools drivers. So I'm just going to put in the driver CD here. And I'll give it a second. And yeah, we see run setup. And this is also the first time we see user account control, so we'll go ahead and just click allow. And I'm not going to walk you through installing VMware tools since different drivers have different setup processes, but basically once this is installed, I've installed all drivers on my system, and we should be able to get a bigger screen resolution and also hopefully enable the aero theme. So I'm going to go ahead and install this and come back once I'm done. Alright, my system's restarted after installing all my drivers, and we can see that we have Windows Vista in full 1080p HD. We don't have the aero theme enabled yet, so I'm going to do that because that's arguably where all the fun is, but I also forgot that with this Welcome Center here, one of the annoying things with Vista is this, you have to uncheck this Run at Startup box here, otherwise it starts every time you log into the computer. So I'll just uncheck that and close this. And to enable Aero, I'll just right-click the desktop, I'll click Personalize, and I'll go to Windows Color and Appearance, and I'll click Windows Aero, and I'll click OK. And we can see here that we have full Aero glass. Alright, now like I was saying earlier, Windows Update doesn't work out of the box anymore, so what we have to do is install Legacy Update to basically patch Windows Update to work again with the Legacy Update servers. So to do this, I'm going to go ahead and open Internet Explorer. And I don't even think the default homepage is going to load, but I'm just going to go to legacyupdate.net. And I'll just scroll down to Install Legacy Update, and I'll click it. And I'll click Run. And I'll click Run again. And of course, we get user account control. I'll just click Allow. And this is actually really nice, I find, because Legacy Update fully utilizes Aero Glass in the installer on Vista and on Windows 7, which I thought was kind of nice. Also, I should mention that Aero Glass only made it through Vista and Windows 7. After that, Microsoft ditched it. But we can see it's kind of making a comeback a bit with Apple's Liquid Glass. So it'll be interesting to see what the next few years holds for this kind of design. But anyways, we're going to go ahead and install Legacy Update. I'm just going to leave everything on default here, and I'll click Install. And I'll just give it a few minutes for it to install some of the essential updates it needs, and the computer will also restart, so I'll come back once this is done. Alright, we've restarted into this sort of minimal shell here. I'm going to click Show Details just so we can see what's going on, but yeah, don't worry, just be patient with Legacy Update and you'll eventually make it back to the desktop and Windows Update will work again. And from there, we'll basically install all possible Windows updates using regular Windows Update again. So we'll get the system as up to date as possible. Alright, finally after a couple of reboots, I can log in again. So I'll just go ahead and log in. And this is interesting. It looks like we're still in kind of a minimal shell here, and Legacy Update has updated Internet Explorer. I'm just going to click Use Recommended Settings and click OK. Well, let's just close that tab. And we'll go back to Legacy Update. It looks like it's checking for the latest updates. Ah, I see. It looks like Internet Explorer is running as administrator. I wonder if that's why we're not getting a desktop right now. Let's see if we close this. All right, that was strange. I had to reboot, but now that I've rebooted, I'm able to get to the desktop, and Legacy Update should be done by now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run Windows Update by going to Start and then Control Panel. And then I'll just click Check for Updates here. And we can see that this is red. We've never checked for updates before, so let's click Check for Updates. And if Legacy Update's installed correctly, we should get a list of updates in a few minutes here. Now, this older version of Windows Update I find does take forever to find updates, so I'm just going to come back once this is done. All right, and after a few minutes, we can see that we have 206 important updates available and 3 optional updates available. I just like clicking on one of these, and it shows you a more detailed list of what's being installed. I always select all of the important ones, and then I normally go into the optional ones and see what's available. So I'm going to install these top 2 here because they look like they could still apply. I'm not going to install Windows Live Essentials 2011 because that's no longer supported and hasn't been for years. So with the optional updates selected that I want and all of the important updates, I'm just going to click OK. And I'll click Install Updates. All right, and this is probably going to take a while, and it may want to restart my computer at some point, so I'm just going to wait until we see something else that's of interest. All right, and finally, after almost an hour and a half, I'm getting this message here that some updates were not installed. It looks like one update failed to install, which doesn't sound too bad. I'm just going to click Restart now, and I'll come back once this is restarted. All right, we've restarted and I've logged back in. So the next thing that I'm going to do is open Windows Update again, and I'll just click Check for Updates. And we see that we still have that one important update, probably the one that failed. I'm just going to click Install Updates. And oh, looks like it installed instantly. So I'm just going to click Check for Updates again on the side here. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep checking for updates, installing updates, and then rebooting and repeating the process until there are no more updates in the list to go through. So I'll come back once this is done. Okay, and now after several rounds of repeating that process, now when I check for updates, I see that I have no updates available except for one optional update. And if I click on it, it's that Windows Live Essentials update, which I'm not going to worry about. I'm just going to leave that the way it is. But yeah, at this point, our Windows Vista system is fully up to date. We've restored Windows Update with Legacy Update, and we've installed all available updates for the operating system. So thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. I plan on doing more of these videos with legacy operating systems, so don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out. Don't forget to like and comment as well, and don't forget to check out my website at www.techop.io.